Hi everybody, time for another Innkeep Developer Diary. I think this is number 10 that we're up to, wow. But it has been a few months, so I will use a bit of this video to talk about the project and where things are going and stuff like that. But for those of you who aren't interested and just want to see the new features, I'm going to do that first, get it out of the way, and then after that we can talk a little bit about why I've added these things or what I've been thinking recently, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so first thing you might notice is that the this menu here is looking a little bit different, and I have put a fair bit of work into it. First is just aesthetics, so you can see these little shouts appearing around the tavern there. And I think it's because these shouts now, when I add them in for the actual game, I thought, these are actually maybe a bit symbolic of the game, and I want to use them into the future now with these kinds of things like the menu or what have you. But as far as functions, we now have, if you start new game, go in here like this, you can see that we have these save game slots. So the reason that we have these is because you can now save your game. It was quite quick and easy to put this in. As usual, you do have bugs and it was a bit of tinkering. It did take a day or two, but surprisingly easy because I had put it off for a long time, thinking that it'd be a bit tricky. What you can do now is choose one of these slots. Maybe you can even overwrite an existing one. We'll just avoid that for now. Play your game, it'll save it, and then you can always go away and press continue, and that will remember which was the last game that you played. Or you can choose a slot to load from here. Okay. Obviously you can't load empty slots. That's thanks to the developer of a really cool game in Game Maker called Gunpoint, Tom Francis. He has a series on YouTube. Do check it out. And he will explain how to do load save and stuff like that. Save game slots I had to kind of invent myself, but I think I came up with a good solution. So what else have we got? Going into the game. Alright, so if you've seen earlier videos, you'll be able to realize quite quickly that something is different. We've got these windows here. There's light streaming in. It's brighter. The candles are off. The candle down here in the GUI is off, and it is morning. Okay, so what that means is that the day now has two phases. Let me just close this door. Alright, so the day now has two phases instead of one. The morning phase, which we're in now, is kind of like a free time phase. The reason why I thought I should add this is because I was thinking, alright, we need to have time to do narrative decisions. We need to have time to talk with people. We have to be able to make strategic choices. We need to be able to shop, buy more booze, that kind of thing. And I didn't want to do all that just in some kind of GUI menu after each day. So as much as possible, I want things to be integrated into the gameplay. And I think it's, it's also just really pretty. I quite like this. If you look here very closely, you can see that there's some overlapping here and a few things I have to fix up, which I'll do. And also these windows here, maybe initially, as you can see, they're like this, but over time, in the next phase, I'm going to have them, instead of just being on or off, light or dark, I might add some kind of sunset effect and all kinds of cool things later, but for now, they're pretty functional. And if we go over to here, light candles and prepare for business. If I click on this, now it's going to fade out. Voila. Okay. So now you can see that the windows are dark, it's evening, the candles are lit, and we're open for business. So this is your action phase. So every day you play is going to be broken down into those two. Let's see. Might just spawn in a few guys. Here we go. 4 of you guys. 1, 2. All on top of each other there. Alright, cool. And there's another feature I want to show, which is why I'm doing this. So with these shouts, I thought actually these shouts, these icons, I really like them, and I thought they look good. They kind of fit the style, or they seem to represent the emerging style of the game. And I had a problem before. So if you've seen my earlier videos, especially, going back maybe 4 or 5 videos before I took it out, I had a guest chatting system. So guests, when they sit together around a table, will talk to each other if there's 2 or more. The issue being, though, that I had text originally, and I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work. Because one of the problems with text is that at a glance, you really can't tell what it's about. You have to read it. And reading is a little bit invasive in a way, like it forces you to have to deal with the text to look at it. So if somebody says, you know, I took an arrow to the knee, or my chickens got stolen, blah, 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 it might be okay 10 times, 20 times, but after you've read it for 30 times, you know, it's really going to start to get tiring. So you definitely want to kind of find a system, for example, like an image system like this. Here you go. So that, you know, if you see that 100 times, it's really not going to piss you off the same way as if you read about the weather 100 times. That's one of the things I was thinking. Another thing is you can tell at a glance what's going on, and then for each different guest type, they're going to be talking about things differently. By the way, that little thing here, that's going to be changed so it fits and points to each one of those people. This guy here, he might talk about something different. So he might, everyone's getting pretty pissed off right now. He might be like, all right, I stabbed a guy, and you'll have a picture of him stabbing a guy. And then these guys will be like, ugh, you know. Or they might be talking about the chickens, and you just see a picture of a chicken or a pig. And he'll be like, well, that's boring. And so you'll really be able to get a sense of the discussion and the actions of everybody in a purely visual style. So that's what I'm going to go for. I think it might really help give this game a bit of a unique feel. So that's pretty much it for what I've been working with the guests. I didn't get too stuck into that. Let's just skip ahead in time, though. End this day. Okay. Fading out. A bit slow because of fraps. Oh, there was a pig there. Don't know if you saw that. Talking about the pigs. Go to bed. Okay, day 2. Down here, you can see it's saving. So the save system isn't something that you control. You don't get to choose when it saves. It just has like this automatic saving at the beginning of each new day. So in that respect, I guess it's similar to a lot of games like this, which are day-based. So this is the police, or you know, Papers, Please, of course. I think they pretty much do the same thing. They just save per day. And one of the benefits of that is it makes the system a lot easier because you're really only tracking a limited number of variables. For example, where all these tankards are, how much alcohol you've got in your barrels or in your cellar, you know, what day it is, how much gold you have, how much wood is here, all of those kinds of things. So, you know, maybe there's still 40, 50 variables, and later there'll be more, but there's not 1,000. You don't have to track the X and Y, you know, locations of all the guests and their moods and all of that kind of thing. So it works quite well, and I think it'll do well enough for the players. So we've got our morning night phases. We've got this new system I'm going to be implementing for guest conversation. Also, we've got this. It's an in-game menu. This did not exist before, so I added this. You can quit right to desktop, you can exit to the menu, or you can continue. And it does pause the game. So if you did need to go away somewhere, you know, let's say, just to illustrate, if I was to, let's see, start walking somewhere, will it? Oh God, so there's this bug I'm still looking for to overwrite this. If I do it here, it's actually going to pause it at that point. So let's see, day 1, pause. So it doesn't perfectly pause everything. So if I walk towards that, I'm still moving. So I really don't know why. I thought I'd fixed it. Let's see. So now the flame, see the flame there's not moving? Now it is. Now it isn't. So it's working for most stuff, just not everything yet. Anyway. And now for maybe the final big feature to show you. Here we go. You can now go outside your inn. You know, very, very fancy looking inn it is right now. But the street, I actually did this art myself just over the last few days. If you were able to zoom in really closely and look at it very closely, it's just the most basic, bare bones, very ugly pixel squares with a little bit of, you know, shading and stuff added on top. But you make it into a kind of a tile, and you give it a little bit of a perspective. This is just using GIMP, just free image editing designing software, and you can make something that looks, kind of passable. I think it's actually usable. So what is this street for? Something I just said earlier is that I don't want to have just some kind of menu which you access in order to do your shopping or something at the end of the day. As much as possible, I want those things to occur in the game space, in the play space. So that's what this street will be. It will effectively be your kind of shopping menu. So let's say you've run low on booze or something. Maybe you need some more candles or some food of some kinds. You need to buy some sausages. You can pop out into this street here, and then at intervals you'll have stores. And you won't be then going into these stores in a sense that they won't be rooms. But if you go into them, your little character might disappear in there. And then above the building, you'll have some arrows for, choosing how many items of X or Y you want to buy. And you'll be able to stock up like that nice and easily. And then when you're out here, you also see people walking around. You might get a sense of the story. So, imagine that there's some kind of overarching narrative, let's say over the few months that you play the game, and then that changes relative to the narrative might be visible, in the actual play space. So let's say some kind of terrible war is, kind of bearing down on everybody. Everything's looking a bit grim. That might be reflected in the street being full of, refugees or, all kinds of stuff like that. So it gives you, a bit more space for kind of world building, laying the setting, getting you to kind of feel a little bit more of a connection with the world outside of the walls of your inn. But at the same time, ultimately, the game is all about the inn. It's just that it gives you that little bit more of a kind of a circumference around what's outside. And I'll have some rooftops and stuff kind of covering this bottom part here, maybe some mountains in the distance or something like that. Okay, so what I'll do, just exit the menu like this. Okay. Just show you, if I was to load the game now, here we are. So that's the game from just before, and it's actually remembered all of the data that we had saved just then, although it should have reset that fine. That's a bug there. So pretty much that's it. We have morning and evening kind of cycles. We've got our in-game menu. We've got saving. We've got guest talk. So what I'm going to do is just maybe spend a few minutes at the end here just to talk a little bit about my thinking about why I've been doing a few things like this. Something I was kind of running into in, I think, February or March is that I started to spend a lot of time, not necessarily bug fixing, but improving a few things. Trying to hammer out some really basic kind of stuff that wasn't exactly fun. Kind of, maybe when you get something working, it feels good, but it's still often something that should have been working anyway, and so your reward isn't a new piece of the game. It's simply something being a little bit less broken after 10 hours or whatever it might be, and a bit too much of that, and I started to get a bit lost and a bit hopeless about how I'm going to proceed. Coming back after a few months, though, I really had this feeling like there's so many opportunities, so rich in opportunities of things you can add and do that I couldn't quite see before. And I had this kind of feeling that what I needed to focus on, instead of trying to think too hard about the perfecting certain things or how should I say, designing core game mechanics, was to actually step back and just say, well, what do we know? We know that we need to be able to save the game. We know that we need to be able to shop and buy things. In a way, if those things work, we've kind of perfected the loop, the basic loop of the game. You sell stuff, that's already in. You can sell people booze. Then if you can buy stuff, and if you can save, then at least theoretically you can play the game for months. If bugs aren't crashing you all the time or something like that. So really, I thought if you can get that going, then you're halfway there, because as that's happening, you start to engage with the play space. Just, it allows you to play. And through doing so, you start to get all kinds of ideas. Like, what if we go into here, and this happens? What if there's a little mouse running around? Or what if we can kind of do this or that? And all kinds of things that you might not have thought of start to kind of appear to you. I've already had quite a lot of ideas just while tinkering around and starting to install things, and I really feel kind of like, wow, this is so much opportunity that it's incredible. But somehow when you're just focusing on a few core mechanics and really just painstakingly thinking about them too much, it really does start to kind of give you this tunnel vision, and you need to get away sometimes. So just concluding thought is, obviously a game's only a game if there are some core mechanics. You've got to have a core game. But as the person, the poor bastard who's got to come back after their day job and work on this, you don't want to be spending all your time just bothering and worrying about that. You really do want to just go away sometimes and add something quick and fun and tinker on the sides. And that's not necessarily bad. That's kind of my conclusion. You don't just want to be, spending hundreds of hours making some really beautiful little piece of art on the side and completely abandoning the actual game per se. But you don't want to get too fixated too early on, I think. You've got, within the boundaries and delimits you've made, allow yourself to elaborate a little bit around the borders. Like you're doing a puzzle. You're filling in the corners first, then the sides, that they have to be there. And as you do so, certain other things start to take shape, I think. So I've got a little bit more faith that will kind of happen as we go along. Okay. I'm looking forward to working on it a bit more over the next few months. I'm not sure when the next video will be. I'm not going to make any promises and talk about a monthly project. I just don't know if I can sustain it. But I really do want to push towards having something that's kind of the next level by the end of the year. I'd like to be able to think, at the end of the year, there's something more like a game going on that people could even play test or something to some extent and give feedback on. But we'll see how we go. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.